Nazer. Should I start over? I'm Shelley Nazer. I'll be chairing the meeting. We have Bob Washburn and Joe Chambers with us as well. Let's go ahead and do the pledge of, absent, we have Michael Washburn. I'm sorry, Michael Fortune. And Bob Hankey and Julie Martin at present. So let's go ahead and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. All right, let's get this party started. Item number 1 on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. We will consider and approve the minutes from March 12th, 2025. Do I have any corrections that need to be made to the minutes?
No, not for me.
They sure look good to me. We use an AI for these nowadays? A little bit? Great.
Most of it's AI, so yeah.
Well, it's doing wonderful. Thank you, Ty, for preparing those. I will go ahead then and take a motion on approving the minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes from whatever the date was.
March 12th.
March 12th, 2025.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you, Joe. All right, motion carries. And now we're going to move to the public comment section of our meeting. So this is a time to where citizens can express their views on issues within the Planning Commission's jurisdiction. We do take comments in person, by email, and by text. Did we get any comments?
No, I checked 2 minutes before I came in. I didn't see anything come through. So.
Okay, wonderful. And for those joining us, this is a time to comment on anything that you feel like you would like to bring to our attention. We typically ask that it's not an agenda item. It's okay if we comment on, if we have public comment during study items. Would that be acceptable?
That would be the chair's discretion.
Okay. So we'll do that at the time if you have public comments you'd like to make. Is there anyone who would like to make public comments on anything that is not on the agenda? Okay, wonderful. We'll go ahead and close the public comment portion of our meeting. We have no public hearings this evening. We have no legislative action items. We have no administrative action items. So we will move forward to our study items. Item number 2 on the agenda is the Timberbrook Home rezone request. We'll review, discuss, and may move forward with setting a public hearing for a rezone request. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you.
Please let the record note that Julie Martin has joined us. Julie, we're on item number 2.
Perfect. Thank you.
It's a rezone request for parcel 02-096-0048, located in the general area of 314 West, 100 South in Providence, Utah. The request seeks to rezone parcel from AGR to R16. At this time, I'll invite Scarlett to come up and tell us about this request.
So we received an application for a rezone on April 28th. I'm not going to read the applicant is here, so I'll let them cover their statement. Under the summary of key issues, though, in addition to the applicant's statement, number 2 is the purpose of this study item is to give the Planning Commission the opportunity to review the land use application to change an existing zoning district prior to making a recommendation to the City Council. The Planning Commission will also hold a public hearing prior to making a recommendation to the City Council. This review provides information specific to a zoning district. It does not contemplate specific development designs. I know that the developers or the applicant has provided you with proposed designs, but they haven't been vetted, they haven't been reviewed or anything because we don't have a zone to review to yet. So just so you keep that in mind. I noticed, excuse me, Ryan was talking to you a minute about our general plan. We always look at our general plan when we do land use items. We have our key initiatives for the audience members. These two posters that are behind the panel here, the commissioners, they are our key initiatives out of our general plan. So since they are on the board there or on the wall, I'm not going to go through and read those in the sense of time, but we do talk about all of them. You can also find our general plan on our Providence City website. There's a couple of different places, so if you just do the search for general plan, it'll pop up there for you. One part of the general plan that we have to be aware of, partly because it's one of our goals to make sure that you are aware and updated on our moderate income housing plan. State code requires that certain cities have a moderate income housing plan. Providence City is of a size and in a county of the correct size that we are one of those cities that are required to submit. Prior to May 7th, there were 24 strategies that cities must choose from. That's changed just a little bit with the new code change. They've added a strategy or two. I don't know that they will be helpful to us, but we will look at those. But the overall goal for the chapter is to planning housing opportunities for all people, regardless of income level, while maintaining the aesthetic qualities and public service levels Providence City residents currently enjoy. Improve access to housing opportunities for low and moderate income residents, and improve fair housing practices. Encourage and support the provisions of the affordable housing units. We picked several strategies, and they are all listed here in the, we do 6, yeah, and we did 6, and they're listed in this staff report. One of them is to modify existing regulatory measures to encourage the development of affordable housing. The strategy that we considered for this one is to rezone for densities to facilitate the production of moderate income housing. I'm going to say this a couple of times because I think it's really important. There are a lot of different zones that we have within Providence City that if a developer chose to do, could build a product on their living units that would meet moderate income housing. However, if a developer chooses and market rates still make those homes unattainable for some people, we as Providence City can't guarantee that. We work to strive to have all kinds of different zones available, but we don't have any control of the market. So that being said, we also look at Utah code that says that the legislative body, as the body authorized to weigh policy considerations, may enact a land use regulation. A zoning change is a land use regulation. Talks about that the legislative body may divide the territory over which it has jurisdiction into zoning districts of a number, shape, and area that it considers appropriate to carry out the purposes of Utah Code Title 10, Chapter 9A, which is the Land Use Code. The Planning Commission shall review and make recommendation to the legislative body for amendments to the existing land use regulation, and before making a recommendation to the legislative body on an item described in, a land use regulation, the Planning Commission shall hold a public hearing. After you have this study item, when you decide when to have Ty schedule the public hearing, then we will post and take care of the things necessary for you to hold a public hearing. In our city code, we also have rules on we establish several zoning districts throughout the city. We have quite a few, actually, a pretty good menu. We also look at our general plan 2020, our transportation plan, our parks, trails, and recreation plan. We have a culinary water plan, 40-year water plan, sanitary sewer treatment and sanitary sewer collection that we utilize in order to, and we look at each development as they come in to see how they work within the plan. And the summary number 7 goes through and kind of summarizes each one of those plans. I won't go through each different summary. And then Providence City Code 10-5 defines and lists regulations for sensitive areas, which are areas that have either a slope or open water or high water table, those kind of things. We look at that to see how the development fits within our code. We also look at Providence City Code 10-6-1 that lists the designated uses in each zone, and 10-8-1. And so the conclusions that this report has drawn, we are divided into zoning districts. The city council is the legislative body for Providence City. So the way it's set up for the audience, the planning commission gets to take the brunt. You're the ones that hold the study item. You're the ones that hear the public hearing. And then you make a recommendation. If your recommendation is favorable or whether it's negative, that's your recommendation. Then it goes to city council, and city council can make their decision. They too can take public comment if they want. However, you are required to hold a public hearing, so you have to take public comment in the public hearing. During study items, it's just more of a service and information gathering for you. And then the city zoning, I'm sorry, I made a type. I just screwed up on that. This should say the city zoning districts include the AGR and the RM or R16 zone. So I apologize for that. The application process has been consistent with the requirements in Providence City Code 10-15. And then we talk about how this fits in with the general plan. In the general plan, we have what we call the framework map. And while this map it's just a general idea type map, it does show this area in an area that could be considered part of the Providence City core, which is and it's also in an area that can be considered 5 to 10 minutes mixed use node. And that doesn't mean a mixed use district necessarily. It just means that within a certain area, there's a collection of retail and service uses focused on a corner or single block serving the immediate and surrounding neighborhood, mixture of uses in horizontal format, uses that are adjacent to each other. In the core, it says the city core is an area of mixed use and higher density attached housing. The mixture can be uses in a horizontal or a vertical format, residential or office above retail, residential above office, regional examples, and then it talks about how some of the bigger cities along the Wasatch Front have handled that type. It's also an area for neighborhood and residential development. What says neighborhoods residential development may consist of one housing type or a mix of housing types. And if you look at this entire area, you will see quite a mix of housing types already. It's a pretty interesting area. The proposed zone supports Key Initiative 6 by encouraging housing options to meet the needs of residents of all ages, income level, family size, regardless of their stage of life. And then the moderate income housing proposed zone change assists with the moderate income housing plan strategy 1 to rezone for densities necessary to facilitate the production of moderate income housing. However, the city recognizes this zoning does not determine unit pricing. Unit pricing is determined by the real estate market. This area is in a really good place for parks. It's adjacent to Meadow Ridge Park, a local park. It's across from Zollinger Park, a regional park. We look at the trail and pathway network, it says a measure of a well-connected trail pathway network is to ensure that many residents as possible have a trail or pathway within 0.25 miles of their residence. And this one has a trail that we just finished. It's a sidewalk pathway, not a trail, but a pathway through Zollinger Park. There's also, that goes along. Then figure 19 shows this area of 325 West as a proposed local road, which leads over to 300 South, which is also an area where there's designated bike lanes, and there'll be sidewalks and that connect with the pathway system down in Logan City on the southwest side. When it comes to our 40-year plan, our wastewater master plan, our stormwater plan, and our culinary water system plans, not the culinary water. We utilize Logan's wastewater treatment plan. All of those plans will be satisfied at the time building permits are issued. Impact fees will satisfy the requirements for the developer on those plans. Stormwater, the developer will provide a stormwater system. We don't charge an impact fee on that one. He'll provide a stormwater system. And then the culinary water plan, they will either provide water, as in water shares, or a water right, or a fee in lieu for the amount of acre feet that it's anticipated that development will need. And so both the stormwater master plan and the culinary water plan will, the developer will take care of those as either part of the construction of the subdivision or prior to recording the final plat, if they're paying a fee in lieu or dedicating water. In the developable and non-developable areas, this one is one of the luckier areas in our city. It has very few geographical problems, so it's a pretty easy place to build on. They probably will want to check for groundwater, but most of the homes have basements in that area, I think, and so it seems to be an area that can be utilized in a lot of different ways. It is adjacent to Alder Well, and a portion of this area may be in a water source protection for zones 1 and 2 for Alder Well. But there's still a variety of uses that can be allowed in those zones. It's not so much the house being built, but if someone wants to do a home business, or if it's a commercial business that's being built in one of those zones, then we work with them at that point to make sure that the business fits within Clean Water Act. And then at the end of the report, you'll also see a use chart that compares, and I didn't change this either, and I apologize on both of these, but it compares instead of comparing the existing district, which is agriculture, I compared the R112, because this has R112, R10, it has park, it has multifamily R8, RM18, and it has agriculture. The church property is still zoned agriculture. So within walking distance, adjacent to or across the street, it's got quite a few different zones right near it. And then if you go as far across the street as Gateway Drive, then you run into mixed use area and commercial area. So it's in an area that has almost
Everything.
the best use of zones that we have. The final thing that we look at are conditions. And one of the conditions is that we will, shoot. Let me flip forward when I should have flipped backwards. I apologize. That the applicant will address the comments that you have tonight. That's one of the things that having the public hear or having you do a study item gives the applicant time to prepare and get information for you that you may feel like you'd like to have, and various staff and consultant reviews. Prior to making a recommendation to the City Council, you'll need to schedule and hold a public hearing. The City Council is the body that will make the final decision, and then the applicant will meet all applicable city, state, federal laws, codes, rules, and approval by the city of any application submitted or paperwork does not alleviate the owners and or their agents from their responsibility to understand and conform to local, state, and federal laws. Providence City's approval is not intended to and cannot be construed to allow any laws to be violated. And then in the packet, there's an area the applicant provided parcel view page from the parcel viewer showing where the property is in relationship to the surrounding area. I took that same parcel viewer and turned the zoning layer on over it so you can see how all of the different zones are in that area. There's also a copy of the county recorder's actual plat map. There is the statement from the developer and the owner's certificate that they're going to allow they're allowing the developer to proceed with this application. I also, just before I walked in, got a letter from Aaron Giles, Aaron Walker, our fire marshal. He will, I'll have it in your packet for the public hearing, but most of Aaron's comments come at the development stage, not so much at the zoning stage. This is in an area where there's a lot of existing infrastructure and everything. So most of his comments, in fact, every one of them, have to do with development, how it's designed and water pressures and everything at that point. So we will talk about that once the applicant has a zone. And if they decide to pursue development, then when you see a preliminary plat, that's when we'll get into a lot of that. Public Works and Engineering did not submit written reviews, but they did meet with me in my office and we chatted about this. So we may have more by the time the public hearing comes around, but right now, that's our report.
Okay.
Questions?
Does anyone have questions for Scarlett?
Okay, thank you.
Loved this overlay map of the other zonings. That was super helpful. Great to
Well-
see it visually.
Thank you.
Great work.
Thank you, Scarlett.
As always. She's so good.
All right, at this time, I'll allow the applicant or the applicant's representatives to come and tell us a little bit more about the project. The rezone request is really all we're here to consider today, but what would you like to share with us?
Well, thank you very much for having me here today. I have a little presentation, if we could pull that up. It should be on the agenda.
You've been
Dallin Tolman is my name, sorry.
Oh, yes, thank you.
So yes, by way of introduction, my name is Dallin Tolman. I am from Young Ward here in the Valley. I married a Providence native. Love Providence, and Timberbrook Homes is our business. I'm the owner of Timberbrook Homes. We're a newer, growing builder here in Cache County and in Box Elder County is where we do most of our homes. And like was mentioned by Scarlett, we're looking to rezone this property to do a nice little development of single-family homes in here. If you go to the next slide, I'll just show once again where that property is, right across the street from the Spring Creek and those fields and that new parking lot that just went in, and then a couple hundred feet from the townhomes multifamily district that we have right there. You go to the next slide, please. So a little bit about Timberbrook Homes and our business. Our our target and our focus is providing affordability in homes. We are different, however, from a lot of the production builders or the cookie cutter builders, I might say, that you see around a lot. A few things that really set us apart. For one, we're much smaller. That allows us to do things that some of these bigger guys are not able to do. We're able to provide an affordable home to people. Most all of our homes are under 450,000 or under 500,000, depending on the size. We've got some 4-bedroom plans that will creep up on that 500 mark. But we're able to do those things and have an affordable home with a custom feel. We still have tile in our showers. We have double shower head master showers. We have custom cabinets, quartz countertops. A large percentage of our plans are single level, and we don't do any steps. This allows it to be very marketable to older generation or people who are not able to, make big steps, as opposed to a lot of the 2-story, the townhome model products that are on the market today. So that's kind of what sets us apart. Our goal, like I said, is to have an affordable product, custom feel, give a little bit more quality and a little bit more value to these people who are not able to afford quite as much. Next slide, please. So I'm sure this is the question on everybody's mind today is why are we going for R16? Just also for the audience, a little explanation there. Our zones here in Providence City, they come with a size requirement. So R110 is a 10,000 foot lot, R18, 8,000 foot, but they also come with a frontage requirement. And that frontage requirement is really what's driving our decision for this lot, for this development. The challenge that we're dealing with here on this lot is it's very wide. And so every lot that we have, putting this road right through the middle, is going to be 150 to 175 feet deep. With the frontage requirements of some of these larger zones, that requires our lots to be 1/3 of an acre plus, which doesn't really allow us to have the affordability factor that we're hoping to find with some of these homes. The R16 will give us the frontage requirements, although we are still planning on, and our concept shows that all of our lots, minus the 2 where the road adjusts, will be over 10,000 feet. At least that's our intention, and everything is panning out like it should fit within that 10,000 foot mark. We still want to provide a very nice lot, a very nice home with a nice backyard to our clients. The R16 allows us to do that with the affordability. It allows us to fit a little bit more lots in there that we're able to cut down our development costs and have a little bit more efficiency in that. So still nice big lots. The R16 can seem scary. We're still going for that size. It'll just have lighter frontage requirements for us. Next slide, please. And then obviously, as you can see, that's a little bit more clear picture of the concept that we have drawn up. Obviously, everything's going to be planned and developed per code, and we have plans to make all of that work accordingly. And then once again, just our goal as a business and in this market is really to provide affordability and quality homes in today's market to help satisfy that need for moderate income housing. And yeah, that's it. And then let me know if you have any questions. My name and number and contact information is on that last slide.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions for me while I'm here?
Thank you. I'll open it up to the commission. Do you guys have questions? Joe, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'm just curious what the frontage requirement is for the R110.
80.
And
80,
so what's the
Scarlett?
width of these lots that, I know the plan's not part of the rezoning. You made that very.
They could be as narrow as 60.
We're showing most of them at 65.
65.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Bob, do you have any questions?
I just want to, it looks like we're going to continue 325 West through the property. That's, I assume, going to be the full width of a city road. Is that right?
Yes.
Master plan.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I think that's the only question. I mean, I'm curious about the house that's already there. I assume that's going to disappear.
So that we actually are planning to keep, and that's going to stay on almost a half-acre parcel.
Okay.
So we'll need to have it that size just for the setback requirements. but that'll be a nice lot still frontage on 100 South.
Looks good. Any further questions?
Nope.
All right. John, do you have any questions?
Don't think so. Did you just ask about the road width?
Yeah.
And so that will allow parking on the sides or not?
I believe so. That's more of a city code question that I'm not sure exactly how that.
I think it's a 30-foot road, so when you take out 2 lanes that are 24, you don't leave 8 on each side to park.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's similar to the road that's to the south.
Okay.
It's a 66-foot right-of-way still.
Mhm.
So you'll have your sidewalk, your 5-foot sidewalk, then your actually, in this scenario, there'll be more like 10.5-foot park strips, and then your curb and gutter, and then your 30 feet of asphalt. So,
Okay, so there will be a sidewalk, but not like a bike lane or something.
Bike lane could be possible, but not parking. Bike lane would only be 5 feet on each side. And it wouldn't be wide enough for a full 5 foot, but it could be for a 4 foot. Because at 30, you wouldn't have enough for 4 on each side. But there's potential for something, but not parking like that. It wouldn't be that big.
That is an interesting road right there. It gets larger at the turn by the park. So would it continue what it presently is at the stopping point, or would it kind of come back down again?
we'll bring
30,
it
you
in.
said?
I believe that was when everything was a 39-foot wide asphalt pad. I can't remember what that was on
Okay.
that. This road, actually, those 3 developments along this road have come at 3 different, they've been
Oh.
spread out. So that's why you can kind of see it change dynamics. One was built back in like 2005 or 6, and then one about 2017 or something like that, and now
Okay.
this one. So in between of each of those, we've revamped our right-of-ways a little bit, and each development has had to meet the minimums of the existing right-of-way at the time. So, but they will do a kind of transition. It won't
Yeah.
dead end and
Okay. Sorry, John, I was piggybacking off of you there. Do you have more questions?
Let's see. So has there been any opposition from neighbors and stuff or anything? Or is that
As
is
of
that
yet.
coming
Hearing about that
forth?
at the hearing.
Or
Well, the public hearing hasn't been held, so at this point, you're just getting information and then putting it to a public hearing. You have some of the some of the neighbors here, but this isn't the public hearing yet, but it's a good idea for them to start understanding what's going on. This would certainly be an opportunity for them to have information on that. But then you'll schedule a public hearing, and then that's where you might get all that. I mean, you can ask him to, it's always nice for somebody that's rezoning to go a couple of houses off from the property, at least help them understand. But that's not necessarily required, but it's always good practice to get your neighbors to know what you're gonna do before they show up here. But at that point, we don't know that because it hasn't gone to a hearing yet, that we would really know that at that point.
yeah, okay.
Okay. Thanks, John. Julie.
Are there currently 2 structures on this property?
There is a house and then there's some outbuildings behind. We plan to leave the house, but we will be removing the outbuildings.
Okay. Is that just like a barn?
Yeah, yep, it's a barn and there's like an arena right there, a horse arena.
Cool. It's kind of an odd shaped property. I see this tail is coming down into taking in another little area patch. What is the plan with that small area?
So you're talking like the bottom left piece there?
Yes.
So that's going to be part of one of our lots there. If you can scroll to the one with the overlay of where that, yeah, so you can see that's where our first lot will start, right there. Our road will do a little bit of an adjustment. It's not going to go straight off where that road starts. That's just an effort to have a little bit bigger lot sizes throughout. That's going to center it a little bit better within that lot. So that little tail will be the beginning of our first lot there.
Okay, how about the extra long tail that I'm seeing on,
Brian, can you
Shoestring at the
bounce over
bottom.
to the parcel viewer?
yes, please.
I think
Do you
that's
have that
owned
up?
by another party.
It's almost
No,
looks like a
it's-
park strip in front of the park.
I see.
Yeah, it's owned by your folks there. The trust, the Gustafson Family Trust. It's that little shoestring at the bottom of
Yes,
this
Yeah, that little
this
teeny
outline
part.
here in front of the park. Just a little
Yeah, just like a weird
10-foot
little.
strip or something there.
That's a great question. We're going to have to figure out what the best practice will be to do with that little strip. I'd imagine that it would have some use to Providence City with the park right there. I don't know what the best thing would be for that little sliver, but we can have that addressed by the hearing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. I have one question. We in previous meetings and past history and conversations, irrigation always comes up, and I see that there's some significant irrigation on this property. Have you worked with the irrigation company? Do you have a mitigation plan? Are you planning to pipe that? What's your plan there?
So it's going to depend a little bit on what zoning we are able to get here. We'll work together with the city engineer and with our own engineers to make sure that any irrigation that is leading to adjacent parcels should be taken care of. How that's going to work exactly and how that's going to route will depend, obviously, on our engineer and the city engineer's preferences. But we do plan to mitigate all of those.
Okay.
Kelly,
Yeah.
I can and the mic really quick.
When we get a plan of development, so a rezone, while it's a land use change, it's not necessarily a plan of development. So when we get a plan of development, like a proposed subdivision, then state code has a time frame that we notify the irrigation companies in.
Okay.
And so I have a form letter and I make sure they have a pitch. We can add a layer, like I added the zoning layer, we can add a layer that shows the irrigation lines. And I add that so that the irrigation companies can see what, in general, where their lines are. They probably already know, but I just provide that to them to make sure. And then they have a comment period, and we do work with them. We have the developer work with them, but we make sure that we are all on the same thought process. So we do involve the irrigation companies just a little bit further down the road.
Okay, great, great. Wonderful. Okay. Well, I'll go ahead and let you off the hot seat for a moment. We are going to allow for the audience members, the public here, if they'd like to comment. This is a great time for you to receive some feedback. I would encourage all of you to speak with one another, to work together, to get your questions answered while you're here. But I'll invite you up. Just come up to the mic, say your name for the record, please.
Leave that picture up. I'm Reese Peterson. I live on 386 West, 100 South. I'm the last house down before the wonderful townhouses that you guys approved years ago.
We didn't approve it. The city council did.
Well, anyway,
We make recommendations.
we won't worry about them. Anyway, Rex and Tammy have been good neighbors, and we're glad for them. We're not here against them at all. It's part in their life where they need to move on. We're not against this building either. So I just want you to know that. There's no hard feelings here. Okay. We just want to make sure, like you said, the irrigation ditch, and I can show you where that's at.
Oh, yeah, I think we can. It's pretty clear.
It comes,
That's a good-
we open head gate up here, and it comes down and makes a jog, and then it comes across, and then makes another jog, and it ends up in, we do Gibson's and then mine,
Okay.
floods here. And Rex irrigates his top part where this is off of Third South. Right, Rex? So that you probably won't have to worry about, as I'm thinking, because that doesn't bother me at all. That just goes for that. So it's pretty simple, straightforward. And then when they did the road, Rex was good enough to, he put a storm drain in right here, it dumps into the city storm drain here for floodwater and stuff, off the farm ground. Because years ago, that when we had bad storms, that flooded. And he corrected that problem. So Rex did a great job on that. Because he's been down there a long time, him and Tammy. You know, so that's just something that needs to be considered and kept, you know, when we're doing it. My other thought is I know the developer wants to get as much money as he can out of it. That's life. But we'd like the lots a little bit bigger, maybe to the lots that are down there around where he's developing. I don't know if they're R12 or 10 or whatever. You know, you know, because, you know, the value of my place, I don't want it to be divided with littler homes, you know, but it is what it is. But anyway, because when I came down there, it's been 30 years. I planned on staying there a long time, like Rex and Tammy did, you know, but, you know, things happen. So it's hard to see all that land go away. It was nice. And it was nice for 30 years, put it that way. You know, it was nice. So that's all I know my concern was just the lots could be a little bigger and the irrigation. But we're not against them building, you know. A lot of people start screaming and that, but what would be nice for recommendation though is, I know you know, like the townhouses, if they'd have made them put like a dog park in or a parking spots, because there's a bad parking problem down there and a bad dog problem. Next time you can verify that. So in this place, if they do it, maybe they could put a little strip of, you know, someplace the dogs to run or add additional parking somehow. I mean, you know, just those are our concerns about it.
Those are great. Thank you so much for sharing that with
All
us, Mr. Peterson. Do I have anyone else who'd like to speak tonight? Just all here for the sheer entertainment of it, huh? Okay, wonderful. Well, that I think sums item number 2 up. Do we have a motion to move it ahead to a public hearing?
I'll make a motion to move it to a public hearing.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Wonderful. And we'll go ahead and move on to item number
So,
3.
Just clarification, so Ty will set that up at sometime when it get it published and when we're all available.
You're looking for June 11th as the next date, best date.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'll make note of that. All right, item number 3. And you guys are free to leave if you'd like, but you're more than welcome to grab some popcorn and stay with us. We're going to be discussing the Planning Commission bylaws.
Popcorn.
She did some false promises. So item number 3, we're discussing the Planning Commission bylaw amendment to bylaw 3.2. Let's go ahead and take a look at that proposal. I'm going to open the floor to Bob Washburn.
Okay, thank you. I've been thinking about the bylaws. I tend to read stuff like that periodically. And so there's an item that I was a little thought we might do a little better with as far as the elections for our commission chair and vice chair that we do in July. I had made a recommendation before that we give people an opportunity to talk about if they are interested and will serve or want to serve in the position that they're being nominated for, and also if they have some some preparations that they've made or whatever that would indicate that they're maybe more qualified or in some way a good choice for being chairman or vice chair. That they be given, first of all, a requirement to just say, yeah, I am willing to serve, and so that we know that they're dedicated and plan to serve in a position like that if they were elected. And secondly, that we have an opportunity to ask them questions and that type of thing if we have any questions. The other part of this is that all members of the Planning Commission are not voting members for the regular activities, which is great. But for the leadership of the Planning Commission, it will affect everyone, whether they're voting or non-voting. I felt like it would be appropriate for all members of the Planning Commission to vote on the leadership of the Planning Commission. And so that's the basic, what I've written up here. It can certainly be changed to be more meaningful or take anything offensive out, but that's kind of the thought that I had, that I feel like it's a good opportunity for all members of the Planning Commission to vote on the leadership of the Planning Commission, and that we give everyone an opportunity to speak up on any particular desire they have or don't have to be in a leadership role on the Planning Commission. So that's kind of my 2 cents worth on why we're discussing this today.
Thank you. Do I have any, concerns, suggestions, questions for these proposed changes?
So just a question on protocol. If we were to vote in favor of it, it still has to go to the city council to get approval of the bylaw.
Yeah.
Does it have to go to public hearing?
No,
Okay,
it's not a public hearing. It goes
just
to
a
the city
recommendation,
council.
and then they'll approve it. Okay,
At this stage, it's listed as a study item,
right.
so it would be to push it into a formal process, but this is just a study
I
item.
move that we move it past the study item and take a vote on it.
Okay, do I have a second?
I second it.
I didn't say in
Oh.
in favor one way or the other.
He's
just-
ready for it.
We just move it along.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, all right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, we'll move that one along to the next meeting.
Well, that's not what I meant. I meant move it along and let's vote on it right tonight.
Oh, right, tonight. Sorry, I did not catch that. Yes, okay.
I don't need to study it anymore.
You don't need to study it. I've studied it. You guys feel okay about it?
It wasn't agended that way, I don't think.
Yeah, my point was that it was agended as a study item.
And it did,
Yeah.
Ryan, it doesn't say that they may choose to approve it or anything like that, does it?
No, just discuss and then
That would be my only concern.
is there a reason that we couldn't?
Just
Yeah, it
public
doesn't-
notice.
It's not a public
It says
item.
the planning commission will discuss amending planning commission bylaw 3.2. And to me, it's implied that if you're going to discuss it, you're going to take action on it.
It's not a public doesn't comment on it. Doesn't affect them really, other than we're gonna have leadership in the Planning Commission.
So we'd like to move it forward to a vote. Is that something that we can do tonight, or do we need to do more public notice? Can we push it up to the city council?
Not amendments, what to push to the council, right?
They're amending their bylaws and the council approves their bylaws.
Right.
I think because when the public looks at the agenda, Ty's been pretty clear about saying and may take action. So when there's one that doesn't say that, but as far as Robert's Rules of Order, I have no idea. I've never really been Robert's Rules of Order. I've just always had to worry about whether we met state code or not. And Ty as the recorder, that's kind of his ball now. But that would be my only concern, is that we have been pretty consistent in saying may take action when
This,
we give you the
can I,
opportunity.
if I can just make a comment, at the end of the bylaws, it says that the bylaws are not code, that they are, if we violate them, there's no, or if we make adjustments, there's no penalty or anything like that. And
But they
so
are approved by resolution of the city council.
right, but at this point, I don't know that there's a requirement for anything as far as the public goes before we go to city council. I don't know what additional action we would have in another meeting. I mean, we would just bring it up and say, okay, we waited a month and now let's vote on it. So I really don't believe that there's an issue, because this is
My concern is if the next meeting we're gonna have is June 11th, because we just have not had a lot of meetings, then the city council can't get it until July 1st,
till after.
which would be, so
Time
to
go.
keep things moving along, I'd make a motion in favor of adopting the bylaw changes as proposed by Bob.
We do have to recommend them to the
Right.
planning commission.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we have to adopt them first, and then
Are we,
we have to
We just
adopt
make
them,
a
and then they have to be
recommendation.
approved. by
Okay,
the-
okay.
We adopt them. If they don't, if the city council doesn't approve them, then we're back to the old one.
So the election is held in,
first meeting in July?
so what would happen if you didn't, just time-wise? The next meeting you'd have is the 11th. The city council would have it on the 18th to approve, and so it could be approved prior to your July meeting. It could be, if you want to do that. I think at that point, I guess it's up to the call of the chair. I'm going to that.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and we wanna go ahead and move it forward. I think we all agree with that. So Ty, if you could just, is it possible to get that on the next planning commission or next city council meeting agenda?
So I have a question then.
I mean, city council's meeting next week. I'm still working on the draft of that, so if the motion was to move it along tonight and vote on it tonight, and then the second motion to amend it, and I can push it on the council for next week.
Scarlett?
So procedurally, the way it's set up right now, as long as a quorum is available, a quorum can take a vote. Where you're changing to include all 7 members, are you going to require 4 out of the 7, 5 out of the 7, 3 out of the 7? What would you require at that point in time? Just so that we can make it clear, so there's not confusion if not all 7 are here.
Yeah, that's a good
majority.
question.
For the election.
For the election, yeah, a majority, I would assume. That's what I would recommend. Yeah, those who are participating in the meeting, whether they're present physically or electronically, yeah.
So if you got 6, the 5 regulars and 1 alternate, you still have to get 2/3 of that.
Would you like to make an amendment to the recommendation?
When you have 5, would you put it off until you had 6 or 7?
No.
No?
No, you just,
Okay,
4 out of the 5, the quorum's present.
okay.
Do you think we should
And
specify that?
and if you had 2 regular members not present and 2 alternates, you'd still have a quorum.
Okay.
And the-
Okay,
The
I mean,
election,
I think that
I
makes
don't know that
sense.
it needs to be changed. It probably says in here, doesn't it?
Quorum.
how that's to be adjudicated, the voting. Well, I didn't print the whole thing. But yeah,
If we have a
let's,
third-party system and 3 candidates, I guess we might get a better problem, but I doubt that will occur.
yeah, I doubt it.
I mean, it does say the election shall be held at a regular or special meeting as soon as thereafter as a quorum can be obtained. So it does specify having a quorum for the election.
It's just a simple majority, as far as I know.
You guys feel okay about that? We're okay to move
We
forward?
can add that language in there,
I think it's there.
majority of those,
I think it's
present.
there in 3.2.
Okay.
Is there any kind of items that where all members vote?
This would be the one,
The only thing, yeah.
would be in the election, so
I mean, whether they're here or not. So like, so some are not here. Would we want to have them have the opportunity to vote, cast a vote, even if it's before? I mean, it would be at a later time.
Voting a
No.
proxy or
You mean a delayed vote?
if they're not
Yeah.
present.
So, I mean, we could vote here
Be here.
and then they could vote at their first opportunity by email or,
have anything established?
No.
We have a quorum here
okay.
right now. If there are alternates here, and I don't know everybody's status, they get to vote. If there are alternates not here, they wouldn't get to vote anyway because we have a quorum on this matter. They would
Tonight. But
They would on electing
on the
the
election
chairman and
of
vice
chairman.
chairman.
Everybody present in the meeting would be able to vote.
But I took the questions as being able to vote on this resolution later.
Yeah,
And
that's what I,
it's just not a need, as I said.
No, I
Okay.
don't, no. We've got a quorum.
Okay, I think we need to,
Oh, just sorry, real quick on the question, because this is bylaws of the planning commission, you are missing 2 members tonight, and Bob and Michael. And moving this forward to city council and them not being a part of the information, I know that they may not be voting members, is that an issue?
no, they're not here tonight, and John and Julie are acting as
Yeah,
voting members.
But they are planning commission members who are affected directly by this bylaw and amendments. So I'm just making sure.
Yeah, no, I think our quorum is here, and I think we can go ahead and move forward. I have a motion on the table, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Do I have a second on that motion?
I'll second it.
Do I have any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we'll go ahead and move that on.
You ruled it unanimous. I'm assuming.
We did, yes. All right, we're going to move on to item number 4. Providence City Code 10-8-4, review and discussion. We're going to review 10-8-4. This is the code regarding height. And I again will open the floor to Bob Washburn to tell us about your recommendation.
Okay, in our last meeting, which was in February, March, whenever it was, we had some public input by Nate Ballstead, who's here this evening, asking us to consider the height requirements because there's ambiguity and conflict in the way that it's currently written up in the code. And I've included in the package a little picture of the page that has an issue. Someplace. Oh, it's right under here. So when we, well, I don't seem to be able to find it.
I have it up on the screen.
Oh, you got it up on the screen. Okay, in the yellow, it says that the height of a house is determined by the highest point of the roof. Thank you. Highest point of the roof, and then it goes down to the representative of the average finished grade of the land around the perimeter of the building. And then we have a graphic which has been added that shows that we go halfway up the roof to get the height of the house, and then we look at kind of the average of the land around it. Which I mean, we ought to have the graphic represent what the narrative is saying, if the narrative is what we really have on the code. So there's some confusion there. Nate had said that the enforcement of this code, and I'm not sure, can't remember when it was most recently changed, but the enforcement of this has been recently become a little onerous for at least one of his clients, and it caused delays in the getting started on the building. It's cost a significant amount of money to redraw the plans and get everything within the enforceable code here. And he had made a recommendation that the way that it seemed like it was being enforced and that the code was in the past, that it was basically a roadside elevation. From the road, you can see, it goes up to a height of 35 feet or however high it goes. And you don't have to deal with how steep the lot is in the back that says, oh, you can only have a 10-foot high house because your lot goes way down and fast. And people start pushing dirt up around the house so that it looks like the average height of the landscaping is different than it might normally be in order to fit into the code. And then on the other side of the street, where they're backed up against a hill, they can build a tall foundation, which some have, and where you walk out of your second floor onto firm ground. So it makes sense to have the code be clear, first of all, easy to follow, easy to enforce. And so that's kind of why I brought this up. But I felt like we had some input that had some valid concerns with ambiguities in our code that we should probably address. And I think this is a time for us to study. But I asked Nate if he could come and answer any questions or give us any further detail. And then we probably need the staff to maybe do some research and see. I have no idea what's sacred about 35 feet.
And at that point, we've reached out to the building permit and the fire department, and we're trying to find that sacredness out.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
So we're working on ours, on our study side. If it proceeds, we'll continue to find out information. If you don't want us to study it, then we'll move on. We've just sent a few emails to try to gather some of that information, what the sacredness of that is, because I'm not sure.
Okay.
But another one of our thoughts is, obviously there is benefit to this method on a downhill side, and it doesn't help on the uphill side, as you mentioned, or vice versa. Anyway, the street view works and is just a mirror image of the problem. So at that point, both are problematic, because whether you have the street view, because then the street view benefits the downhill side, but the uphill side has a slope. But if you have that same 35 feet on an uphill side, you've lost a lot based on the elevation of the ground. rather than an average. So the mirror image of those two are the street view or the average view. But granted, that point of the term, the highest point, generally the wording trumps the diagram, but the diagram should definitely be updated to the language. Unless you want to swap those and propose a swap, then we need to correct the language to match the drawing. But there is a conflict because this one's midpoint, the drawing is midpoint, and the wording is high point. So there is that, and we can see that is a difference in the diagram versus the written. So anyway, but we are trying to research out the sacredness of
Okay.
35 feet because I agree with you. I don't know the sacredness of that. It is common as we've
It's
reached
pretty
out.
common.
It's pretty common.
Yeah.
Whatever that, why that is, and what that is, so anyway, we are looking at that, and it's a nice study item. So if you want us to proceed in the study on our side, and if you're willing to proceed on your side, then we'll continue. But
Part of this also revolves around the enforcement of the height. We see a lot of houses going up, and boy, it sure looks like a lot of them are higher than 35 feet.
and at that point, we ought to have it measured. Obviously, from our side, we start from a flat drawing.
Right.
And so the end result is done through the county building office, but ours is a flat drawing that we get, and the information we get is provided. So I agree. We need to make sure that everybody's
Yeah,
enforced.
and we discussed, but I think that it's fair to say that if we're going to have a policy, then it really needs to be enforced. And at some point, it gets approved by the city, and then it goes to the county for building permits and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know at which point it changes from the approval from the clearance from the city to where they start building, and we have a 50-foot building. And, depending on where you're looking from, 50 foot is pretty conservative measure of some of these houses. So,
And then it's measured finished grade, and so
it makes it gives the appearance that we're either giving favoritism to some people or singling others out for strict enforcement, which is unfortunate, and it's a recipe for some trouble if people get.
Yeah, we don't have any indication or desire to do that.
So anyway, that's just the point that I wanted to make, is that we need to do something about the code, and also the enforcement of the code to the extent that we can. And like I say, I mentioned to Nate that we were having this discussion if he was here to answer questions or to help us in what he's seen in the past. He's been a builder here in Providence for many years. And
Thank you, Bob.
so
I'm wondering if you would be willing to study it further and maybe reach out to the county, and maybe find out some of those answers.
me,
If you would be willing, if you have time, if you can find time.
I probably wouldn't. I'm planning to not extend for my second term, and so probably next month will be my last meeting. So I'm not willing to spend the time to do that. I've got other things on my plate right now.
Okay.
But it is part of the purview of the city to understand that as well.
Scarlett?
We have reached out to the county.
Okay. Oh, wonderful.
I already sent them an email when we
That's one.
got the request.
Okay.
We actually also have a way to do city code amendments, and quite frequently we make people hold to that too. So I think there, I appreciate the planning commission bringing it up, but I think we need to follow our
Official
procedure.
policy. Okay. At this time, I'll invite Mr. Balstead. Did you want to come up and speak on this matter?
I can share something, but sure.
Yeah, if you'll just come up, share your name at the mic, please.
Nathan Balstead, thanks for the opportunity to be here. As Bob pointed out with the diagram, I too don't know the sacredness of the 35 feet. I'm not opposed to the 35 feet either, because it is quite common, I think, as Mr. Snow pointed out, amongst cities to have a 35-foot height. What bothers me from a builder standpoint is the average of the grade, because you can take a 35-foot house that's on, I'm going to point in the right direction, the east side of the road, and it would be fine. You could take a 35-foot house on a flat lot and it would be fine. Same exact house. And then you take that same exact house and put it on the west side of a road that happens to have a sloped backyard. And now that house doesn't meet ordinance because we're basing it off an average grade of the front, the sides, and the back. Now, to get around that, and what people are doing is they're building up dirt on the sides of their property, on the sides of the house. And they might just be doing dirt. They might be adding retaining walls, which adds costs, which adds more problems. But to what avail? Meaning, I personally like that 35 feet, so I can see it from the road. That makes sense. So as you're sitting in the road, you look out, that height isn't over 35 feet. But if it happens to be 40 or 42 from a back view, I don't see a problem with that. Or even if it was 45. I don't know how long this specific language has been in the code. That's actually a question I'd like to know.
It would say right here that it's been there since February 19th, 2020. These are all the ordinances in which change this code. And so this code has been changed that many times. And this one would tell us that it was changed by that ordinance and that on that date. So but that ordinance has changed that many times over the last several years. Okay. So it has been a fairly changing, and the height, this is just this section of the code that's changed. That doesn't mean that that's not the height number that hasn't changed that many times as well. I don't know the answer to that one because this is what we've been brought up, and I have to pull that, but this one has changed at least that many times in these dates. So
do we know why an average has been included in that language?
I don't have the history of each one of those. We could look at the history of each one of those ordinances and where it was. At this point, we accept that that's what it is, and I think that our research is trying to find that. So okay. At this point, I'm going to tell you, we're trying to find out what others do and why. That's what we'd like to find out.
It is the predominant way to do it. When you search it, most all of them, and I was at a planning conference, and they were talking about, particularly with hillside lots, they do averaging. Okay. So it's not an uncommon way, that's for sure.
It certainly hasn't been common in the city up until maybe 2020.
No, actually, that part of the code has been in the code for quite some time. The graphic was added, but the averaging has been there for quite a while.
I've been building in Providence for 23 years, and this is the first time it's been brought to my attention. So it may have been there, certainly not enforced. And I think code should be enforced as written. So my petition is that we change the code and go back to a frontage view rather than average. I see no benefit. I see no logical benefit to having the average.
I'd ask the question, what you've mentioned, and I just, as a builder side, I want to pose the other one from a street view. Let's take the house on the slope and look at the other side, the east side house, that if it's a street view and it's on a hillside, say it's a 20% slope, at that point, the farther that goes, you put 30 feet back and you've already gained 5, 10 feet, whatever it is. I don't know what that slope that is. But from a street view, that uphill house now it's shrinked farther and farther from that street view, the farther it is off of the roadway.
Not necessarily, because you're actually taking the finished grade up against the house. That measurement is not finished grade to the back of the property line, which may be higher up. So as you build a house, finished grade is determined by the walkout, whether that's the main floor or basement. And that grade can continue out with slight slope for about 10 feet. And then it can go up or down from there.
That's a good distinction, but street view is from the street.
That's-
I get what you're saying, that is the frontage measurement of the house. I get that, and I appreciate the clarification. But street view is from top back of curb.
So you're making an argument that
I'm
this
only
is-
saying that we want to make sure that when we get there, that it's clear that we're talking the face,
the street view.
the house face.
And I think that's the one that it should be determined
I
on.
don't disagree. I'm just,
Okay.
face of house and street can be 30 feet different.
Mr. Volstead?
Yeah.
Sorry, this is
Sure.
not the proper time to go back and forth with the city. So I would encourage you to give them a call and talk with them and ask questions. But I appreciate you coming up and sharing with us your thoughts and your ideas. Do you have anything further that you'd like to share with us at this time?
So you're asking, just to clarify, you asked me to meet with Ryan and
I'm not asking
Scarlett?
you to. I'm just saying the best method of doing that is not this forum. It would be yeah. If that's something you would like to do to get your questions answered, to have this back and forth discussion with the staff.
I'd like to
I don't-
have a dialogue with him for a minute.
Absolutely, absolutely.
How are you doing?
You okay?
Life is good, thank you.
So, this problem doesn't exist if you building in a subdivision that's got CCNRs, because the CCNRs are going to control over the city ordinance if they're tighter.
Some city, yeah, it depends on the subdivision. Some could have a height restriction.
Okay. The second comment is are you familiar with where my house is
Uh-huh.
and the lot to the east,
Yes.
Godfrey's lot?
I don't know their names, but I'm familiar with the house to the east of you.
Yeah, nice people. The house that's behind the Godfreys to the east overlooked a vacant lot for a number of years, and the Godfreys imported a fair amount of soil and built a two-story house. The hillside coming down Vaughn's Way is fairly steep.
Pretty steep.
And my guess is they wiped out about $200,000 worth of property value by building that two-story house. They had every right to. I'm sure it meets code, but they did it by importing a lot of fill in the front of the lot. And I've looked at that and thought, boy, if I'd owned that other house two up the road from me, I'd be a little bit upset at what happened. And I've read cases out of Park City where houses that, and this is neither pro or con for what you're proposing. I'm not going anywhere with this. I'm just making observations. But I've seen cases in Park City where the slope of the hill is here, and they built the house here, and they've got a nice view of the valley. They build another house here and violate the height restriction and wipe out the view of the valley. And they get into lawsuits. I mean, we're talking several $1 million homes and people that have lots of money to argue over those things. Full employment for attorneys up there. But there's cases out of Park City where they've had to take the home that wiped out the view out of it because it's violated either the city ordinance or the CCNRs of the subdivision. Most of them are CCNRs. But I think it's worth looking at. I think Nate's got a valid point. And I'd be very interested in what the fire code and the county and everybody. So I think we ought to keep it on the agenda for what a report from the city as to what they find.
Well, I appreciate the council looking at it, or the commission, your commission. And I think it's worth discussing further because I think change starts with you.
Yeah, you
Not
understand
with-
we make recommendations.
Yes, correct. Yeah. talk in reference to your neighbor's property, people are generally, they're pretty committed to what they want to do. So I see people just building retaining walls to hide part of the bottom of their house to build up the grade so they can have the height they want. And I think we're back to square one. It just doesn't change anything. All it does is add cost and a nuisance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I
Thank you.
say something? While I think it's really important to see what other cities are doing and compare against that, obviously knowing what fire code and other things like that are, I think it really would be helpful to get a little bit more of your perspective, maybe some proposals or ideas of you or other builders who are in the area to input how that impacts building, how that impacts views, and what your proposals and perspectives are, just so we have that knowledge, I guess, that knowledge set from you. I think that would be really helpful.
Sure.
Thank you.
John, did you have anything, questions or?
I'm just mulling around in my head. We talked about why would that be a city code of a certain height, and it seems to me like a good reason would be as a safety thing for the fire thing. So, a ladder height to access whatever part of the house, or how far the hose can shoot or whatever, or even accessing, someone to save someone out of the house. So to me, it almost seems like, we would have to find out if that's the reason, if there's a limitation on that. But and my house, for example, would an average, my front of the house, it's low to the ground here, and then it goes up here on the front yard, and then the backyard, just figuring an average would be ridiculous. It would just be, you'd have to use some calculus or something to figure it out. But I would almost be more concerned about the maximum height from any ground level to the peak of the roof, but rather than any kind of average. But it seems like you'd have to do a case by case basis, because just like the front of my house, well, you could access it from over here, 10 feet away and be fine, we need to figure out what the reason is. Is it aesthetics, or is it a safety,
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, you're off the hot seat. Thank you so much. I have a question for Scarlett, if you don't mind. Do you still have the mic handy? As far as making a change to the code, can we recommend that change as a planning commission, or does it have to go through the formal process of the city code amendment form and application?
Well, definitely we can make the change to get the proper graphic, because that's a cleanup item.
Yeah.
When we start talking about substance, if it's a life safety matter, then I think that's different too. I do think this one is one that, well, in all honesty, we've struggled with this for quite a while, but particularly once the Little Baldy Road went in, because the elevation changes from the top to bottom in that area really brought up a lot of problems. And of course, I didn't know this was coming, but I was sitting in a workshop on Thursday, and Lehigh City was talking, and they kind of ran up against the same thing when they started Traverse Mountain, that went up the mountain there. Their code was a lot like ours, still is a lot like ours, but they all of a sudden they had a different type of home being built in an area that hadn't really been anticipated over the years for building, and it it is quite tricky to figure out how to get a good mix. The biggest problem when we talk about enforcement, and again, we want to be respectful of property rights and things, but a lot of times finished grade at the time that they get C of O is not finished grade by the time they get done landscaping. And that is causing quite a bit of problem too, because what was approved based on finished grade at time of certificate of occupancy from the building department. So the building department's done their thing, zoning has done their thing, we've all made sure that the numbers all match. And then we all start our lives, and then landscapers come in and the whole world goes upside down. And we are limited by state code in what we can require on certain landscaping and things like that. So it is really tricky when we're dealing with hillside lots to the point that we are here. We get quite a few complaints similar to the Joe's neighbor, where a home has come in and built their lot up because they wanted to have a walkout basement. So in order to have a walkout basement, they had to build their lot up. And now all of a sudden they're 6-7 feet above their neighbors, and the neighbors are looking at big walls or things like that. And we've received quite a few complaints about that kind of stuff. I guess it's just a matter of how far you want to go and how far state code would let us go. I would much rather have a taller home and not have to have as many retaining walls, to Nathan's point about the retaining walls. But, to John's point, we do have to look at safety, and we have contacted the fire marshal's office. Aaron Walker's working on that for me. And Blake Nelson at the county is working on the building code aspect, excuse me, of it. So, but yeah, as far as changing the graphics to make sure that our code is not conflicting with itself, I don't think we need to follow the process to change it, go through the public hearing and all that, but not necessarily a formal application process. But when we start kind of looking at just ideas about creating a different code, then we probably should stick as close to the formal process as possible. So, but there are times when it does look like enforcement hasn't been carried out the way it should have, but it was at the point in time when we all said, okay, this is finished, we're done, we're walking away. And then people made changes after the fact. And honestly, we don't always see them, particularly if they're in the backyard, until a neighbor alerts us. And then we have some tough discussions and go from there.
Yeah, it's hard to make your house shorter, right? It's already done. Okay, let's do I have any other questions or concerns from the commission?
Thank you.
Okay, so I will take a recommendation on what we should do with this study item. We want to go ahead and continue to study it. Do we want to move forward with at least making them match the language and the graphic?
I would make a motion that we continue it on the next agenda for a report as to the fire department and the county. And if Scarlett has time, maybe to contact Park City and see what their ordinance, because I would imagine one of those mountain towns like Heber or Park City has already encountered this. Maybe even Ogden City as they build up next to Harrison Boulevard. But see what we have. If you don't have time, I don't want to put stuff on your plate, but that would help, and then see what action we want to do after that.
Okay. Is that your official motion?
Yeah, but I want to make the motion to adjourn next.
Okay, I'll take a second on Joe's first motion.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I,
Okay, motion carries. And
so is it on Scarlett to do the research then, or is there a
she
task?
shook her
someone-
head yes. I'd like that for the record. I want that to be official.
And that's any other city that you know of. I mean, I'm not saying those specific
Draper.
ones.
Comparisons.
We've already started, and Nathan and I have talked a while ago, and he told me he would give me some stuff, so if you'll reach out and do some homework and get with me, that would be great.
Would it help to see what the changes, you have all these changes from the past, or is that just more busy work? I don't know.
Probably more busy work.
Yeah.
And we could go back and see what we'd done and why.
Yeah, maybe we get the report first, and if that's enough information, then we just work with that.
Okay, and I'll take a motion on this. Joe's second. Yes.
Here, these guys
I
have been
second the
quiet.
motion to adjourn the meeting.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Adjourned.